The October wind howled across the Wyoming territory like a banshee, driving sheets of rain against the windows of the Crossroads Inn. Inside the dimly lit tavern, the usual crowd of drifters, cowboys, and gamblers nursed their whiskey and tried to ignore the storm raging outside. At a corner table, a poker game had been running since sundown, and tempers were beginning to fray along with the players' nerves. Nathan Cross sat with his back to the wall, studying the faces around the table, with the practiced eye of a man who'd learned to read danger in the smallest gestures. He'd come to town for supplies, not trouble, but the game had drawn him in with the promise of easy money from drunk cowboys. Now, 3 hours later, he was beginning to regret that decision. The trouble started when Billy Garrett, a local ranch hand with more whiskey than sense in his system, accused the saloon girl of signaling his cards to other players. The girl, a slender brunette named Lucy who couldn't have been more than 20, had been serving drinks and trying to stay invisible. But Garrett's paranoia had fixed on her as the source of his losses. "I seen you whispering to that stranger," Garrett slurred, pointing an unsteady finger at Nathan. "Telling him what cards I'm holding, ain't you, whore?" "I haven't said a word to anyone," Lucy replied quietly, her voice steady despite the fear Nathan could see in her brown eyes. "I'm just serving drinks, don't lie to me," Garrett roared, lurching to his feet and knocking over his chair. "I know what you are, a cheating bitch who thinks she can make fools of honest men." Nathan felt tension coil in his shoulders. He'd seen this kind of situation before, and it rarely ended well for anyone involved. Billy Garrett was the type of man who became violent when he was losing, especially when he'd been drinking. "Settle down, Billy," Nathan said calmly, his hands visible on the table. "The girl's done nothing wrong. You're just having a run of bad luck. You defending her." Garrett's bloodshot eyes fixed on Nathan with the kind of focus drunk men got when they found a target for their rage. "Maybe you two are working together. Maybe you're both cheating me." "Nobody's cheating you," Nathan replied, slowly pushing back from the table. "You're drunk and you're losing. Best thing would be for you to call it a night." But Billy Garrett was beyond reason. With a roar of rage, he backhanded Lucy across the face, sending her stumbling backward into the bar. The sound of the blow echoed through the suddenly quiet tavern, followed by the crash of bottles as Lucy fell hard against the shelves behind the bar. Nathan was on his feet instantly, but Garrett was already advancing on the fallen girl, his face twisted with alcohol-fueled fury. "Lying whore, I'll teach you to cheat honest men." "That's enough," Nathan's voice cut through the tavern like a whip crack, but Garrett was too far gone to listen to reason. What followed was a beating so vicious that even the hardened drifters in the tavern turned away in disgust. Garrett kicked Lucy repeatedly as she lay helpless on the floor, his heavy boots connecting with her ribs, her back, her legs. Her cries for mercy seemed to inflame him further, and he continued the assault even after she'd stopped moving. Nathan tried to intervene, but two of Garrett's friends from the Double R Ranch held him back while their companion worked out his rage on the defenseless woman. By the time the tavern keeper finally gathered enough courage to stop the beating, Lucy lay unconscious in a pool of blood, her body twisted at angles that suggested serious injury. "Get her out of here," the tavern keeper ordered, his face pale with shock at what he'd allowed to happen in his establishment. "I don't want no dying woman in my place. She needs a doctor," Nathan said, kneeling beside Lucy's still form and checking for signs of life. Her pulse was weak but steady, and he could see the shallow rise and fall of her chest. "Nearest docks in Laramie, 40 miles north," someone called out. "She'll be dead long before you could get her there." Nathan looked down at the broken woman, feeling something twist in his chest that he hadn't experienced in years. Lucy reminded him of someone, his sister Sarah, who died young in circumstances that still haunted his dreams. Sarah had been helpless too, defenseless against men who saw violence as their right. "I'll take her," Nathan said quietly, gathering Lucy's broken body in his arms as gently as possible. "You're wasting your time," Garrett sneered, wiping blood from his knuckles. "Or probably won't live through the night anyway." Nathan met the rancher's eyes with a cold stare that made several men in the tavern step backward. "If she dies, Billy, I'll be coming back for you. And when I do, you won't like what happens next." The threat hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Nathan Cross had a reputation throughout the territory as a man who kept his promises, especially the unpleasant ones. Garrett's drunken bravado faltered under that steady gaze, and he turned away with muttered curses. Nathan carried Lucy out into the storm, her blood soaking through his shirt as he struggled to load her into his wagon. She was unconscious, her breathing labored, and he could feel the unnatural angles where bones had been broken by Garrett's vicious assault. The journey to his ranch took 3 hours. Through the worst weather he'd seen all year, Nathan drove like a man possessed, trying to balance speed with the need to avoid further injuring his passenger. Lucy remained unconscious throughout the trip, her body limp as a rag doll, and more than once he thought he'd lost her entirely. The Broken Arrow Ranch sat in a valley between two low ridges, its buildings barely visible through the driving rain. Nathan had built the place with his own hands over the past 5 years, creating a refuge where he could live quietly with his books, his horses, and his memories. He'd never intended to share it with anyone, especially not a dying woman he barely knew. He carried Lucy into the house, laying her carefully on his own bed while he built up the fire and gathered what medical supplies he possessed. The full extent of her injuries became apparent as he carefully removed her torn clothing, broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, severe bruising across her back and legs, and what looked like internal bleeding. Nathan had learned field medicine during his years as an Army scout, enough to handle gunshot wounds and broken bones in emergency situations. But Lucy's injuries were beyond anything he'd dealt with before, and he found himself working by instinct and prayer as much as knowledge. He splinted what bones he could, bound her ribs to help with breathing, and cleaned the countless cuts and abrasions that covered her body. Through it all, Lucy remained unconscious, her breathing shallow and irregular. Nathan found himself talking to her as he worked, partly to keep himself focused and partly because the silence felt too much like a death watch. "You're going to be all right," he murmured as he bathed blood from a cut on her forehead. "I know it doesn't look like it right now, but you're stronger than you know. I can see it in your face, even like this." For 3 days, Lucy hovered between life and death while Nathan maintained a constant vigil beside her bed. He forced water and broth between her lips when she was conscious enough to swallow, changed her bandages, and monitored her breathing for any sign of improvement or decline. On the 4th morning, her eyes opened and focused on his face with what looked like confusion and fear. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "You're safe," Nathan replied gently, setting down the book he'd been reading aloud to her unconscious form. "My name's Nathan Cross. This is my ranch. Do you remember what happened at the tavern?" Lucy's eyes filled with tears as the memories came flooding back. "Billy Garrett. He said I was cheating, but I wasn't. I would never. And then I know," Nathan said softly. "You don't have to talk about it now. You need to focus on getting better." Lucy tried to sit up and immediately gasped in pain, her face going white as her broken ribs protested the movement. I can't feel my legs." Nathan felt his heart sink. He'd been afraid of this. Some of Garrett's kicks had landed dangerously close to her spine, and the swelling from her injuries might have caused nerve damage. "The doctor will be here tomorrow," he said, trying to keep his voice calm and reassuring. "We'll know more then." But when Dr. Harrison arrived from Laramie the next day, his examination confirmed Nathan's worst fears. The brutal beating had damaged Lucy's spine, and while she might regain some feeling and movement with time, she would likely never walk normally again. "I'm sorry," Dr. Harrison said quietly as he packed his medical bag. "The injuries are too severe, too extensive. She's lucky to be alive at all." After the doctor left, Nathan found Lucy staring out the window at the mountains in the distance, tears streaming silently down her face. She didn't speak for the rest of the day, and Nathan respected her need for silence as she processed the reality of her situation. That evening, as he sat reading beside her bed, Lucy finally spoke. "Why did you help me?" she asked quietly. "You don't know me. I'm nobody special, just a saloon girl who was in the wrong place at the wrong time." Nathan considered the question, thinking about Sarah and the promises he'd made to himself after her death. Because everyone deserves help when they need it, he said finally. And because you're not nobody, you're Lucy, and you're worth saving. Even if I can't walk, even if I'll never be whole again, Nathan met her eyes steadily. Especially then, Lucy, what that animal did to you doesn't define who you are. You're still the same person you were before. You're just going to have to find a different way to live your life. What kind of life can I have like this? Lucy's voice broke with despair. I can't work, can't take care of myself. I'm just broken. You're not broken, Nathan said firmly. You're healing, and healing takes time. But it does happen. I've seen it before. Lucy turned away from him, facing the wall. You're just being kind. We both know I'll never be normal again. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then stood and walked to an old trunk in the corner of the room. He pulled out a worn fiddle case and opened it to reveal a beautiful instrument that had clearly been well-loved and well-played. This belonged to my sister Sarah, he said, running his fingers along the strings. She could make this thing sing like an angel, used to play at all the local dances, had half the county's young men lined up hoping for a chance to dance with her. He sat back down, cradling the fiddle gently. Sarah got sick when she was about your age. Fever took her hearing almost completely. Doctors said she'd never play music again, never be able to dance to her own playing. What happened to her? She died, Nathan said quietly. But not from the fever. She died because she gave up, because she decided that a life without music wasn't worth living. I've regretted not fighting harder for her every day since. Lucy turned back to face him, seeing the pain in his eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry for her, Nathan said, meeting her gaze. Be better than she was. Sarah let her limitations define her. Let them convince her that she had nothing left to offer the world. But Lucy, you're stronger than that. I can see it in the way you survived what Garrett did to you. How can you be so sure? Because you're still here. Nathan replied simply. You're still fighting, still asking questions about tomorrow. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are inside. Lucy was quiet for a long time, staring at the fiddle in Nathan's hands. Finally, she spoke in a voice so soft he almost missed it. Will you play something? I used to love music before. Nathan smiled and raised the fiddle to his chin. The melody that filled the room was sweet and sad, a waltz that spoke of lost love and enduring hope. As the music washed over them, Lucy closed her eyes and for a moment forgot about her broken body, lost herself in the beauty of the sound. When the last note faded, she opened her eyes to find Nathan watching her with an expression of gentle understanding. Someday, he said quietly, when you're ready, I'm going to teach you to dance again. It might not look the same as it did before, but you will dance, Lucy. I promise you that. The lonely rancher had found a broken woman and brought her home to heal. Now the real work would begin, not just mending her body, but helping her spirit remember how to soar. 3 months had passed since the beating that had shattered Lucy's body and spirit, and the winter snow lay thick across the Broken Arrow Ranch. Inside the warm cabin, a routine had developed that neither Nathan nor Lucy had planned, but both had come to depend upon. Nathan had moved to the small back room, giving Lucy the larger bedroom with its window overlooking the mountains, and their days had settled into a pattern of healing, conversation, and quiet companionship. Lucy had made remarkable progress, though it came in frustratingly small increments. The swelling in her spine had reduced enough that she could feel sensation in her legs again, and Dr. Harrison's monthly visits had grown cautiously optimistic about her chances for limited mobility. But the road to recovery was long and filled with setbacks that tested both her determination and Nathan's patience. I want to try again, Lucy announced on a particularly bright February morning, her jaw set with the determination Nathan had come to recognize as a sign she wouldn't be dissuaded. You tried yesterday, Nathan pointed out gently, looking up from the ranch ledgers he'd been working on at the kitchen table, and the day before. Maybe you should give your back more time to. I've been giving it time for 3 months, Lucy interrupted, her brown eyes flashing with frustration. I'm tired of being an invalid. I'm tired of you having to carry me everywhere like a child. Nathan set down his pen and studied her face, seeing not just determination, but the bone-deep weariness of someone who'd been fighting an uphill battle for too long. Lucy had been working with increasing desperation to regain her mobility, pushing herself through exercises that left her exhausted and often in considerable pain. "All right," he said finally, "but we do this my way, slow and careful, and if you feel any sharp pain, we stop immediately." Lucy nodded eagerly, already reaching for the wooden crutches Nathan had crafted for her from seasoned oak. They were beautiful pieces of work, carved with intricate patterns and fitted with leather padding where they contacted her body. Everything about them spoke of the care and attention Nathan had devoted to her recovery. The process of getting Lucy from bed to standing position was complex and required both of them working together. Nathan had rigged a series of ropes and pulleys that allowed her to support her weight gradually, and over the weeks she'd built up enough strength in her arms and core to maintain an upright position for short periods. Today felt different, though. As Nathan helped position the crutches under her arms, Lucy felt a stability she hadn't experienced since the beating. Her legs, though weak and unsteady, seemed more willing to support her weight than they had in previous attempts. "How does it feel?" Nathan asked, staying close enough to catch her if she fell but far enough away to give her space to succeed, or fail on her own. "Strange," Lucy admitted, sweat already beading on her forehead from the effort of remaining upright, "but not impossible. I think I can try taking a step. Just one," Nathan cautioned. "Don't push too hard." Lucy lifted her right foot and moved it forward perhaps 6 inches before setting it down again. The movement was clumsy and uncertain, but it was undeniably a step. She looked up at Nathan with an expression of wonder and triumph that took his breath away. "I did it," she whispered. "I actually took a step." "You did," Nathan agreed, his voice thick with emotion he tried to hide. "But that's enough for today. We don't want to overdo it." "Please," Lucy said, her eyes bright with the first real hope he'd seen since her injury. "Just one more." "I can feel my legs today, Nathan. Really feel them." Against his better judgment, Nathan nodded. Lucy took another careful step, then another, each one more confident than the last. She made it halfway across the room before her strength gave out and Nathan had to catch her before she collapsed. "Easy," he murmured, supporting her weight as he helped her back to the bed. "You did wonderfully. But that's enough excitement for one day." As Nathan helped her settle back against the pillows, Lucy reached out and caught his hand in hers. "Thank you," she said softly, "not just for catching me, but for everything. For saving my life, for believing I could get better when I didn't believe it myself." Nathan felt his throat tighten at the gratitude in her voice. Over the past months, he'd watched Lucy transform from a broken, despairing woman into someone who fought daily to reclaim her life. Her courage humbled him, especially since he understood the depth of determination it took to keep trying, when every instinct screamed at her to give up. "You don't need to thank me," he said quietly. "What you're doing, the way you're fighting back from this, that's all you, Lucy. I'm just providing the place for you to do it. It's more than that, and you know it," Lucy replied, her fingers tightening around his. "You could have left me at that tavern to die. You could have dumped me at the doctor's office in Laramie and washed your hands of the whole situation. Instead, you brought me to your home, gave up your own bedroom, and spent months nursing me back to health." "Why?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the snow-covered landscape. Finally, he looked back at her with eyes that held old pain and carefully controlled emotion. "I told you about my sister Sarah," he said slowly. "What I didn't tell you was that she wasn't sick when she lost her hearing. She was beaten, just like you were, by her husband, the man who was supposed to protect her." Lucy felt her breath catch. "Nathan, I knew what was happening," Nathan continued, his voice flat with self-recrimination. "I could see the bruises, the fear in her eyes, the way she flinched when he raised his voice. But I was young and stupid, and I thought, it wasn't my business to interfere between a man and his wife. That wasn't your fault, wasn't it?" Nathan's laugh was bitter. "I could have stopped it, could have taken her away from him, given her a place to heal and start over. Instead, I minded my own business and told myself that Sarah was strong enough to handle her own problems." Lucy squeezed his hand gently, understanding now the depth of guilt that had driven him to rescue her from that tavern floor. And when she lost her hearing, her husband claimed she'd fallen down the stairs, Nathan said. Everyone believed him, including me, because it was easier than facing the truth. Sarah never said different. She was too ashamed, too broken to fight back. She just gave up. Stopped trying to communicate. Stopped playing her music. Stopped caring about anything. How did she die? Took her own life, Nathan said quietly. Couldn't face a world where she felt useless and unwanted. Left a note saying she was sorry for being such a burden. Lucy felt tears sting her eyes as she imagined the pain Nathan had carried all these years. She wasn't a burden, no, she wasn't. But I never told her that. Never made her understand that her value wasn't tied to what she could or couldn't do. I failed her completely. Nathan met Lucy's eyes with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. I won't make that mistake again. Is that what I am to you? Lucy asked softly, a chance to make up for not saving Sarah. Nathan considered the question carefully, understanding that his answer would shape everything between them going forward. You started that way, he admitted. But Lucy, you're not Sarah. You're not broken or defeated. And you sure as hell aren't a burden. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I don't feel strong. Most days I feel like giving up entirely. But you don't give up, Nathan pointed out. That's what makes you strong. Every morning you get up and try again. Even when it hurts, even when progress seems impossible. Do you have any idea how remarkable that is? Lucy was quiet for a moment, processing his words. Sometimes I think about what my life was like before. I wasn't anything special, just another saloon girl trying to get by. But at least I could dance. You can dance again, Nathan said firmly. Maybe not the same way. Maybe not to the same music. But you will dance, Lucy. I meant what I said about that. How can you be so sure? Nathan stood and walked to the corner, where Sarah's fiddle case rested. He'd taken to playing for Lucy in the evenings, filling the cabin with melodies that seemed to help her pain and lift her spirits during the darkest moments. Because dancing isn't about your feet, he said, returning with the instrument. It's about your heart, your spirit, the way music moves through you. That part of you wasn't damaged by what Garrett did. He raised the fiddle and began to play. A slow, beautiful waltz. The melody filled the room like sunlight, and Lucy found herself swaying slightly in response to the music despite her position on the bed. See, Nathan said softly, not breaking the rhythm of his playing. You're dancing. Right now. Lucy felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the tight knot of despair she'd carried since waking up unable to feel her legs. For the first time since the beating, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, there might be joy waiting for her on the other side of this long, difficult recovery. Nathan, she said when the music faded, would you teach me to play? The fiddle, I mean. I know it's not the same as dancing, but maybe I could learn to make music instead of just moving to it. Nathan felt his heart clench with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Are you sure? It's harder than it looks, and your hands are still weak from the injuries. I'm sure, Lucy said firmly. I need something to work toward, something that isn't just about getting my legs back. I need to know that even if I never walk normally again, I can still create something beautiful. Nathan nodded, understanding the deeper need behind her request. Lucy wasn't just asking for music lessons, she was asking for hope, for a future that didn't depend entirely on her physical recovery. All right, he said, settling beside her on the bed with the fiddle. But we start slow, and if your hands start to hurt, we stop. As Nathan began showing Lucy how to hold the instrument, how to position her fingers on the strings, he felt something he hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. The sense that he was helping to build rather than simply trying to repair what had been broken. The lonely rancher had waited for her to heal, but now he was beginning to understand that healing came in many forms. Lucy might never walk the way she had before, but she was learning to stand in ways that had nothing to do with her legs, and maybe, Nathan thought as he watched her concentrate on producing her first tentative notes, that was the most important kind of dancing there was. 6 months later, the sound of fiddle music drifted across the Broken Arrow Ranch like a blessing, weaving through the warm summer air and calling to anyone within miles. That joy had returned to the valley. Lucy sat on the front porch, her legs covered by a colorful quilt Nathan had bought for her in town, playing a lively reel that made even the horses in the corral seem to step more lightly. Her progress with the instrument had been remarkable, driven by the same fierce determination that had gotten her back on her feet. Nathan had proven to be a patient and skilled teacher, and Lucy had shown a natural aptitude for music that surprised them both. What had started as physical therapy had evolved into something approaching artistry. "That's beautiful," Nathan said, settling into the rocking chair beside her as the song came to an end. "I swear you play that piece better than Sarah ever did." Lucy smiled, carefully setting the fiddle in its case. "She taught me well, even if she wasn't here to do it herself. I can feel her presence sometimes when I play, like she's guiding my fingers." Nathan nodded, understanding what she meant. Sarah's fiddle had become a bridge between past and present, a way for his sister's music to live on through Lucy's newfound talent. It felt right somehow, as if this was what Sarah would have wanted, her instrument bringing joy instead of gathering dust. In a corner, "Dr. Harrison seemed pleased with your progress yesterday," Nathan observed, studying Lucy's face for any sign of the pain he knew she still carried. Lucy agreed. "Said I've regained about as much mobility as I'm likely to get. I'll always need the crutches for longer distances, and I'll probably never run or dance the way I used to." But she paused, her brown eyes bright with something that looked remarkably like contentment. "But I'm alive, Nathan. I'm useful. I can take care of myself and contribute something meaningful to the world." The transformation in Lucy over the past 9 months had been nothing short of miraculous. Not just physically, though she'd far exceeded everyone's expectations in that regard, but spiritually and emotionally as well. The broken, despairing woman Nathan had carried out of that tavern had evolved into someone who radiated strength and quiet joy. "Speaking of contributing," Nathan said, pulling a letter from his shirt pocket. "This came for you today, from Denver." Lucy took the envelope with surprise, noting the official seal and expensive paper. "I don't know anyone in Denver who would write to me." As she read the letter, her eyes grew wide with astonishment. "Nathan, this is from the territorial governor's office. They're inviting me to perform at the Harvest Festival next month. Apparently, word has spread about my music, and they want me to play for the celebration." Nathan felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. Lucy's musical abilities had indeed become known throughout the territory, thanks to visitors to the ranch who'd heard her play and spread word of her talent. But the thought of her traveling to Denver, facing crowds of strangers, brought back all his protective instincts. "That's quite an honor," he said carefully. "What do you think?" Lucy was quiet for a moment, staring at the letter as if it might disappear. "I think I'm terrified," she admitted. "It's one thing to play here on the porch, for you and the occasional visitor, but performing for hundreds of people who might know my story. Are you worried about what they'll think?" "Partly," Lucy said. "I know some people still see me as that saloon girl who got beaten half to death. There will be whispers, judgments about who I was before and what I deserved." Nathan felt anger flare in his chest at the thought of anyone judging Lucy for the violence that had been done to her. "Their opinions don't matter. What matters is your music, and your music is extraordinary. But what if I'm not ready? What if I can't handle being around that many people? Or what if my hands shake too much to play properly?" Nathan reached over and took her hand in his, feeling the calluses she'd developed from hours of practice and the slight tremor that still remained from her injuries. "Lucy, 9 months ago you couldn't even sit up without help. Today you can play fiddle music that brings tears to grown men's eyes. If you can overcome what Garrett did to you, you can handle anything a crowd in Denver might throw at you." Lucy squeezed his hand, drawing strength from his steady presence as she had so many times before. "Will you come with me? I know it's a lot to ask, leaving the ranch for that long, but I don't think I can face this alone." "Of course I'll come," Nathan replied without hesitation. "Wouldn't miss hearing you perform for the world." 3 weeks later, they made the journey to Denver in Nathan's wagon, taking the trip slowly to accommodate Lucy's limited mobility and the need to transport her fiddle safely. The territorial capital was bustling with activity as ranchers, farmers, and townspeople gathered for the annual harvest celebration. The hotel Nathan had booked was comfortable and accommodating, with a first-floor room that made it easier for Lucy to navigate with her crutches. But as the day of her performance approached, Nathan could see her growing anxiety despite her attempts to hide it. "What if I forget the music?" she asked on the morning of the festival, pacing the small hotel room as much as her limited mobility allowed. "What if my hands cramp up? Or what if the fiddle sounds different in the open air?" "Then you'll improvise," Nathan said calmly, helping her with the buttons on her new dress, a beautiful blue creation that complemented her eyes and made her look like the accomplished musician she'd become. "Lucy, you've practiced these pieces until you could play them in your sleep. Trust yourself. I never imagined I'd be doing something like this." Before the beating, the most performing I ever did was humming while I served drinks. Now I'm supposed to entertain the territorial governor. Nathan turned her to face him, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "You're not supposed to do anything except share your gift. That's all performing is, sharing something beautiful with people who need to hear it." The festival was held in the town square, with a wooden platform serving as the stage. Lucy would be the featured entertainment between the governor's speech and the evening dance, performing for an audience that Nathan estimated at close to 1,000 people. As the appointed time approached, Nathan helped Lucy onto the platform, staying close enough to assist if needed, but far enough away to let her claim the moment for herself. The crowd quieted as she settled into her chair and raised Sarah's fiddle to her chin. For a moment, Lucy looked out at all those faces and felt the familiar flutter of panic in her chest. Then her eyes found Nathan in the crowd, saw his encouraging smile and steady presence, and something settled inside her. She began with a gentle ballad, something she'd learned from Nathan that spoke of love and loss and the enduring power of hope. Her bow moved across the strings with growing confidence, and the crowd seemed to lean forward as one, drawn into the spell of her music. The second piece was livelier, a reel that had people tapping their feet and swaying to the rhythm. Lucy found herself smiling as she played, feeding off the energy of the audience and the pure joy of making music. But it was her final selection that brought tears to eyes throughout the crowd. It was a waltz Nathan had taught her, one that Sarah had composed years before her death. Lucy played it with such emotional depth and technical skill that even the most hardened cowboys found themselves wiping their eyes when the last note faded. The square erupted in applause that seemed to go on forever. People were on their feet, cheering not just for the music but for the courage it had taken to create beauty from such devastating circumstances. Later that evening, at the dance that traditionally closed the festival, Lucy sat beside the platform, watching couples whirl across the temporary dance floor. Nathan had stayed close throughout the evening, deflecting the congratulations and requests for encores that had followed her performance. "Do you regret it?" he asked as they watched a young couple spinning in perfect harmony to the music of the hired band. Not being able to dance like that anymore, Lucy considered the question, watching the dancers with an expression that was wistful but not bitter. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but Nathan, I realized something tonight when I was playing. I am dancing just in a different way." "What do you mean?" "When I play, when the music flows through me and out into the world, I feel the same joy I used to feel when I was dancing. It's not about my feet moving, it's about my spirit soaring. And in some ways, this kind of dancing is even better because I can share it with so many people at once." Nathan felt his heart swell with admiration for this remarkable woman who'd found a way to transform tragedy into triumph. "Sarah would be proud of what you've done with her fiddle." "I hope so," Lucy said softly. "I like to think she's dancing somewhere, happy that her music is bringing joy to people again." As the evening wound down and they prepared to return to their hotel, a young woman approached them hesitantly. She was perhaps 18, with the kind of fresh-faced beauty that marked her as newly arrived from some distant farm. "Miss Lucy," she said shyly, "I just wanted to thank you for your music tonight. I'm in a similar situation to what you went through. A man hurt me badly, and I've been feeling like my life was over. But hearing you play, seeing how you've overcome so much, it gives me hope." Lucy reached out and took the girl's hand, squeezing it gently. "What's your name, dear?" "Emma." Emma Thornton. Well, Emma Thornton, let me tell you something important. What happened to you doesn't define who you are or what you can become. It may change the path your life takes, but it doesn't have to destroy your capacity for joy or accomplishment. How do you stay so positive? How do you keep from being angry? All the time, Lucy glanced at Nathan, then back at the young woman. I won't lie to you, there are days when I'm furious about what was taken from me. But I've learned that anger is like a poison you drink hoping someone else will die. The only person it hurts is you. What should I do? Find something you love, something that makes you feel alive, and pursue it with everything you have. For me, it was music. For you, it might be something completely different. But whatever it is, don't let anyone convince you that you're not worthy of happiness. As Emma walked away with tears in her eyes and hope on her face, Nathan felt a familiar swell of pride.